Hey guys, I don't usually make parts or unboxing videos or anything like that. It's been a while since I've done any of that sort of stuff on any channel or forum, but I figure I would make one on the AFE Power air intake for the Corvette. So here's the part number I ordered. All right, and as you can see, this is the Stage 2 Corvette Z06 package. I've had Corvettes for quite a while. Had a couple of them. Had a C5Z, had a C6 Z51, had a couple of Z06s. I still have a Pro charged, or A&A kit rather, Z06 here. It's roughly 750 wheel. And then I started messing around with the intake, and because I just bought a C7 Z07 package Z06 recently, so I'm going to start modifying this one. Nothing crazy. Don't want to go too crazy, just want to keep it as a street car. So there's the box. I've done the unboxing, so I'm just going to kind of walk through the parts. And the purpose of the video is more or less to answer some of the questions that I had, because everything I read online kept talking about how the fitment was really, really good on the AFE versus the other brands like the Haltech or the Veraram or the K&N or the InGen, and read quite a bit, but everybody kept going back to the fitment, and so that was kind of the main reason for me buying it. But I kind of wanted to know more about the quality of the parts. It's hard to assess that in the video, so I'll spend a little bit of time going over that. There's a couple install videos on these as it sits, so there's no need to do that. So I'll start with the intake tube. The intake tube is fairly robust, heavier and thicker than what I thought. It's got the AFE branding on the elbow there, which I don't really care for, but it's there. It's got the boss to screw in the nipple for a vacuum line, and then you can see inside the housing there. Make sure the light can get it there, but it's like a smoother finish on the inside. I've heard lots of people talk about how the interior diameter at the finish, where it bolts up to the throttle body, is smaller than you know, some of the other brands out there, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because ultimately they all have to bolt up to the 87mm throttle body. But what really turned me on was the fact that it already came with the little metal bosses kind of in there, and I said, well, that's pretty neat. And then if you've ever modified cars or anything like that, you know, you have the tendency to torque down on these things and they'll crush, collapse. So they put a steel ring inside of the inlet here. So it's an 87mm opening. I measured it. And so that'll prevent you from crushing the end where you bolt it up to the throttle body. So I thought that was kind of neat in terms of engineering and being thoughtful about the build of it. There would be where the MAF cartridge screws in. And again, they've got metal fittings there. I've used intakes where they use kind of those screws that'll thread into plastic, which I was never really a fan of, so I was happy to see that. The orientation of the intake is like this. You can see it's got an indentation there in the tube itself, right? It doesn't show up on the other side. It's just on the outside, which I thought was neat. It's not sacrificing the flow or anything like that, but I guess that's where the coolant line rests on top of there. So they made like a little indentation or provision for that. So, you know, I was pretty impressed by that. So that's that. The housing itself, which is here, again, some more AFE branding. It's held in by these little C-clips, these little push-on clips in the plastic, but two of them are like melted or, you know, soldered, plaster soldered, I don't know what you call that, in there. So I preferred it was just a clear window with no branding, but again, that's me. I don't want to have, it's like me, I don't wear any t-shirts with logos or anything like that. That's just my preference, but it's on there, so what are you going to do? On these sides here, where it bolts up, it's got the same 3 bolt holes. I know some of the intakes, like the Haltech, removes one of the bolts on there, so it's only secured by 2 bolts. This one remains and keeps all the factory bolts, and you actually swap all the rubber grommets over to that. Where it bolts up to the fender, which is right here, doesn't have any rubber lining or insulation, so it's not creating any pressure seal or anything like that for ram air effect. You know, it doesn't actually sit quite flush on the fender because those rubber grommets would hold it. I guess you could torque it down and make it touch, but ultimately that's not the point. It's just kind of supposed to suspend it there and mount it nicely. So, you know, that's a piece. I guess if one was interested, they could always get some double-sided foam tape or rubber seal and try and make a seal there, but I don't know the effect if that's just not worth your time and energy and effort there. So, you know, that's that. Also on the intake tube, you know, always nice to see that they put a little lip on here to prevent the rubber seal from coming off, whatever bolts up to it, whatever silicone coupler or hose. So, you know, the hose clamp can fit up over it, and it's got the tendency not to slip off, so that's nice. I've got the actual air filter here, so I'll come over here and I'll show you. In terms of height, it's roughly 2 inches, 2.5 inches taller than the factory one. Part of that is the silicone mounting at the bottom. The filter is probably 1.5 inches taller, but definitely more surface area. I chose the dry media filter, so they make an oiled one and a non-oiled one. I chose the dry one just because I don't want it messing with the mass airflow sensor or anything like that. So that's why I chose that. Also on the filter itself, you'll notice it has provisions for the hose clamp on there as well. So it'll create a nice seal on there, and then on the inside, right, it's ribbed. So where it would hook on to the actual intake hose or intake pipe, you know, it's creating like a more of a good seal and connection there as well. If you make it smooth, they had the tendency to slide around or not clamp down as good. So all that sort of stuff, I thought, well, that's pretty good quality in engineering. So that I was like hard to pick up in the videos. So that was like one of the things I wanted to point out. And then here's the little stalker in comparison, which is very small, much thicker. I actually ran a BMS filter, which is in the car now. I just took off the mirror box. So the BMS filter's in there. I had it on there for, I don't know, 50 miles. And then, you know, I noticed a little bit of a difference with the BMS filter. I did. But I originally wanted a cold air intake. I found a good deal on the forum, so I pulled the trigger and went ahead and ordered it. So what I thought was overkill, right, in a good way, were the hose clamps. So if you're familiar with hose clamps, these are Murray's stainless steel hose clamps, and they're these T-bolt clamps with nylon nuts and or thread lockers, so they're less likely to come unscrewed or start backing out and stuff like that. And you could way over torque this thing if you're not careful. But like this is like way overkill. But it's nice. The quality is nice. It'll look nice once it's in the car. So it comes with this one for the actual filter housing that goes at the bottom there. And then there's some for the intake tube. And again, it's the same T-bolt clamp by Murray's, which is stainless steel and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, these aren't cheap. So, you know, drives up the cost of the intake. But if you're buying a $100,000 car, I guess it's worth it. Part of it is you have to modify the coolant line. So they make you cut a hard line and you replace it with that coolant hose. That's that there. There's a couple places where you'll put in the intake hole or intake tubing, and you'll screw that in. And so it came with a bottle of thread locker, which was pretty thoughtful, pretty neat. You'll need one zip tie to complete the installation. And then of course, there's a coupler. It's funny, when I was watching videos on the AFE intake, there was a bunch of silicone connectors, both from AFE and other brands that had a straight silicone connector, but I like this one. So it's soft, it's AFE branded, so they subbed it out and had somebody make it for them. And it's the type that allows the intake to move around a little bit, so as the engine torques, you know, you don't have to worry about the intake, you know, maybe dislodging or you know, rubbing up against the fender and that sort of stuff. So this will handle a lot of the engine movement. I'm using my cell phone to video this, so I can't show you that right now, but I thought that was pretty neat. So you know, pretty high quality. As opposed to the straight piece of silicone, like I still have the Veraram from my C5 Corvette. So as opposed to this style, which came on the Veraram, which was a straight, you know, piece of silicone hose connector, and you can see the standard, you know, hose clamp, which as you torque them down, you're left with all this extra stainless steel, which you try and tuck and hide away. But that's like an example of like from the quality piece, which I appreciated on the AFE setup. And then of course, whoops, sorry about that. And then of course on the stickers, right? That's all the horsepower. So you got to apply all those stickers and get your advertised horsepower. I'm just kidding. But it did come with a AFE plastic license plate, which I'll probably just hang in the garage or put the stickers on the toolbox or something. But you know, that's pretty much it. Hope that helps those folks that are looking to make a decision on intake. This was some of the stuff I wanted to know about in the overall quality that I couldn't quite tell in some of the videos that were out there. And lots of really good detailed install videos, but nothing on the part quality itself, allowing you to look piece by piece. So hope that helps you guys make up a decision on what you're doing. I'm going to, oh, last piece is the instructions. Phenomenal. It's about one of the best manuals I've seen. So I pulled mine apart, or I pulled it apart last night and, you know, let the car cool down, and then I was going to work on it tonight, so I'm going to do that now. But the instructions, flip this mat over here. The instructions are excellent, and not in the verbiage or the narrative that would tell you how to install it, but it does come with, you know, all the parts lists, so verify everything's there. It'll give you kind of an overview of how to install it. But once you got in, sometimes you miss, you know, the narrative on like what to do, like if you're struggling with that, or even for a newbie kind of going through it, parts removal, etc. The pictures are really, really good. Sometimes people make an attempt to do that. They take a picture, but it's grainy, you can't see stuff. I was really, really impressed with the quality of the photos. Now, there's enough videos and stuff like that out there, you know, but when you start talking about quality, this is like some of the stuff that that people look at and it makes you think, man, it's kind of a high quality piece between the double quality inspections and the packing and all that sort of stuff. And then in the back, which I thought was good, if you needed to reorder a filter or get a dry media filter, there's the parts numbers, cleaners, and then you know, some pretty neat advertising. So they'll list other parts that are available for your car, and then talk about the warranty that's available. And the warranty on the air intake itself is 2 years. So, okay. That was the last piece there on the instructions. So I thought that was really good. So hopefully you guys find this helpful, and I'll do some other videos later on. I'm gonna try and do another one later on because I just ordered the AWE X-Pipe, which just came out for the C7 Corvette. It's been out a couple months, didn't just come out, but I can't find like one review of it online. But I'll do another video on that and kind of show you, kind of do a unboxing on that as well. There's X-Pipe install videos, so I won't go through that, but hope you guys appreciate it. Thanks.